There comes a moment in life where waiting feels like the hardest thing to do. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've cried, and yet it feels like the heavens are silent. Waiting can feel like punishment, but let me tell you, waiting is not denial, it is preparation. God does his best work in the waiting season. While you're waiting, he's shaping, he's pruning, he's aligning, and he's preparing you for the very thing you've been praying for. Waiting is one of the greatest tests of faith because it challenges not only your patience, but your perspective. Many people confuse waiting with wasting, but the two are not the same. Wasting is when time is slipping through your hands without purpose, but waiting on God is an investment. Every moment you feel delayed, heaven is orchestrating something you cannot see. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. The enemy would love for you to think you've been forgotten, overlooked, or disqualified, but the truth is that the delay is divine. God is not punishing you in the waiting room. He's preparing you for what he promised. Think about a seed buried beneath the ground. At first glance, it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like it's stuck, lost in the dirt, hidden in darkness. But what you don't see is the process beneath the soil. The roots are stretching deep, the shell is breaking open, and life is being formed where no eye can see. The seed doesn't sprout overnight, it waits. And when the right season comes, it breaks through the soil and produces fruit. That's how God works in your life. While you are waiting, he is developing you beneath the surface. You may feel like you're buried, but you're actually being planted. Don't mistake hiddenness for abandonment. Don't mistake silence for absence. Waiting does not mean God has left you. Waiting means God is working in ways your natural eyes cannot comprehend. He's shaping your character, sharpening your vision, and stripping away what cannot go with you into the next season. Because sometimes the very thing you're waiting for requires a version of you that has been tested and proven in the waiting room. The enemy will whisper in your ear, "You're wasting your time. Look at how far behind you are. Look at how many people have passed you by." But let me remind you that God's timing is not man's timing. People may seem ahead of you, but God has written a unique timetable for your life. Delay is not denial. What looks like a pause is actually a process. What feels like stagnation is really preparation. Waiting is not wasted because every moment of it is aligning you with destiny. Think about Noah. He waited decades while building an ark for a flood no one believed would come. People mocked him, ridiculed him, but his waiting wasn't wasted. The day the rain came, all of a sudden, his waiting turned into winning. Think about Abraham and Sarah waiting for the promise of a son. The years stretched long, but their waiting wasn't wasted. At the appointed time, Isaac was born and the promise was fulfilled. Time didn't cancel the promise. It confirmed God's power to keep his word. Some of you are in a season where you feel like nothing is moving, nothing is shifting, and nothing is changing. But I dare you to trust God in the wait. Stop thinking you're losing years. Stop thinking you're falling behind. What you think you lost, God will restore in his own time. What you think you missed, God will multiply when the moment is right. Every prayer, every tear, every quiet night of questioning is watering the soil of your promise. So lift up your head, square your shoulders, and understand this truth. Waiting is not wasting. It is proof that God is still in control. It is evidence that the promise is worth the preparation. And when the time comes, you won't just step into what you've been waiting for. You'll step into it stronger, wiser, and ready to win. Waiting seasons are not designed to weaken you. They are designed to strengthen you. Every delay, every disappointment, every not yet is not there to break you down, but to build you up. The waiting room of life is a gymnasium for your soul. When you're forced to hold on, when you're forced to trust without answers, when you're forced to walk by faith and not by sight, that's when your spiritual muscles begin to grow. You don't get strong in the sunshine alone. You get strong when you've had to weather storms, when you've had to endure nights of uncertainty, when you've had to fight through seasons of silence and still keep believing. The truth is, most of us don't like resistance. We don't like to struggle. We don't like to be stretched, but you can't grow without resistance. Just like a bodybuilder can't build muscle without lifting weights. Your spirit can't grow without carrying the weight of waiting. Every time you refuse to give up in the waiting room, you're lifting faith. Every time you worship when you don't see a breakthrough, you're lifting hope. Every time you keep walking when the road feels endless, you're building endurance, and sooner or later, you will come out of that season stronger than you went in. Think about a runner who trains on hills. The climb is difficult, the incline is exhausting. When the race day comes and the ground is level, the strength gained from the hills makes running easier. That's what the waiting season does. It builds you in secret so that when the opportunity arrives, you don't collapse under the weight of the blessing. Waiting builds endurance. It teaches you how to stand when everything inside of you wants to sit down. It teaches you how to pray when all you want to do is complain. It teaches you how to keep pressing forward when nothing around you seems to be moving. Consider Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Every delay in his life was weight on his spiritual barbel. Every rejection was resistance training. He could have folded in the dungeon. He could have cursed God in the pit, but he didn't. He endured. And when the palace door finally opened, he had the character, the wisdom, and the resilience to handle the throne. Without the waiting room, Joseph would not have had the strength for the winning room. Waiting seasons strip away your dependency on feelings and build your dependency on faith. Because feelings fluctuate. One day you feel hopeful, the next you feel hopeless. But faith is steady. Faith says, even if I can't see it, I know God is working. Even if I don't understand it, I trust his hand. That kind of faith can only be built when you've had to wait longer than you wanted to. Waiting strengthens your roots so that when the winds of life blow, you're not easily uprooted. So stop despising the weight of waiting. It may feel heavy, but it's making you stronger. The very pressure you think is crushing you is actually conditioning you. The very delay you think is defeating you is developing you. Don't waste the wait by complaining. Use the wait to grow. Worship through it. Pray through it. Push through it. Because when the time comes, the strength you gained in the waiting will carry you into the winning. And here's the truth. When you finally step into what God has promised, you'll look back at the waiting season and realize it was the training ground that made victory possible. You'll say, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be ready for this. If I hadn't been delayed, I wouldn't be strong enough to stand here now. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is strength training. And those who endure the wait will win the race. When you are in a season of waiting, what you stand on determines whether you sink or survive. If you stand on feelings, they will shift like sand beneath your feet. If you stand on circumstances, they will rise and fall like unpredictable waves. But when you stand on the Word of God, you stand on a foundation that cannot be shaken. The Word is not fragile. It is not temporary, and it is not dependent on the conditions around you. Heaven and earth may pass away, but the Word will endure forever. That means while you wait, you are not empty-handed. You are armed with a promise that cannot fail. The waiting season can feel like wandering in a desert with no map, no sign, no direction. But the Word becomes your compass in that wilderness. It reminds you that though you can't see the way out, the one who spoke the Word is faithful to bring it to pass. The Word says, though it tarry, wait for it will surely come. The Word says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. The Word says, all things work together for the good of those who love God. When everything else is screaming defeat, the Word whispers victory. When the enemy floods your mind with doubt, the Word raises a standard of truth. The challenge is that waiting without a word feels like punishment, but waiting with a word feels like preparation. When you know what God said, you can hold your head high even when everything around you looks low. You can endure delay without despair because you know delay doesn't cancel the promise. Think about David, anointed to be king as a young shepherd boy, yet sent back to the pasture. It was years before he ever sat on the throne, but he had a word. That oil that ran down his head was God's confirmation that no matter how long the wait, the promise was sure. And when Saul chased him, when enemies surrounded him, David could still declare, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? That's what it means to stand on the Word in the waiting. The enemy's strategy is to get you to doubt what God said. He knows that if you abandon the Word, you abandon your anchor. That's why you can't afford to let the waiting season silence your confession. Speak the Word, pray the Word, declare the Word over your situation. Because every time you do, you're reminding the enemy that you are not standing on your feelings. You are standing on truth. You may be tired, you may be frustrated, but you are not defeated. You are rooted in a word that will not return void. Sometimes God lets you wait not to punish you, but to prove the power of his word in your life. If everything happened instantly, you would never learn how to lean on the promises. But when the nights are long and the answers don't come quickly, you discover the sustaining strength of his word. It becomes food when you're hungry, light when you're in darkness, and peace when your mind is overwhelmed. The waiting doesn't diminish the word. The waiting amplifies it. So plant your feet firmly. Refuse to let go of what God has spoken. Others may question you, doubt you, even mock you, but stand anyway. Stand when it's hard. Stand when it hurts. Stand when nothing makes sense. Because the moment you decide to build your life on God's word, you've already shifted from weakness to strength, from fear to faith, from waiting to winning. And when the time comes, you won't just walk into your promise. You'll carry the testimony that the word sustained you through it all. Waiting seasons have a way of exposing what we truly believe. It's easy to have faith when doors swing wide open and prayers are answered quickly. But the real test of faith shows up when heaven seems silent, when opportunities seem to pass you by, when your prayers echo back without an answer. It's in those moments that trust is either born or broken. Trusting God when you cannot trace him is one of the greatest acts of worship you will ever offer. Because trust says, I don't understand it, but I still believe it. I don't see it, but I still expect it. I don't feel it, but I know he's faithful. The trust is not passive, it's active. Trust doesn't sit with folded hands in despair. It leans forward in expectation. Trust wakes up every morning saying, this could be the day. Trust lays plans, prepares the ground, and waters the soil, even when there's no sign of rain. Trust is building an ark when there's no cloud in the sky. Trust is setting the table before the food arrives. Trust is praising before the breakthrough shows up. Look at Abraham. God gave him a promise that he would be the father of many nations, yet years passed with no son. Every day, he had to decide whether he would trust what God said or surrender to what his eyes saw. Trust kept him moving, even when time mocked him. Trust carried him through the waiting until the appointed time came. And when Isaac was finally born, it wasn't just a son, it was the manifestation of trust rewarded. The truth is, trust is forged in the fire of uncertainty. If everything made sense, you wouldn't need trust. If everything happened on your timetable, there would be no stretching of faith. But God allows waiting because it draws out trust like nothing else can. When your back is against the wall, when options run dry, when people let you down, you learn to lean on him in ways you never did before. Trust is built in the gap between the promise spoken and the promise fulfilled. And hear me, trust doesn't mean you won't feel frustrated. It doesn't mean you won't wrestle with questions. It doesn't mean you won't cry some nights. Trust means you take those tears and those questions and lay them at his feet instead of letting them harden your heart. Trust means that even when you don't get the explanation, you hold on to the expectation. There are people who gave up too soon. They walked away from their destiny because they couldn't handle the weight. They stopped trusting. And as a result, they forfeited what was on the other side of the delay. Don't let that be you. Don't allow the enemy to convince you that silence means absence. Silence is not abandonment. Silence is often strategy. While you are waiting, God is weaving things together, aligning resources, positioning people, preparing places you haven't even stepped into yet. Trust says, God, even when I can't trace your hand, I trust your heart. Trust is believing that his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. His ways are greater than your ways, and his timing is better than your timing. Trust doesn't always give you answers, but it gives you peace in the middle of unanswered questions. So hold on to your trust. Don't trade it for fear. Don't trade it for impatience, because the moment you let go of trust, you let go of the anchor that keeps you steady in the storm. But if you keep trusting, even in the wait, you will see the promise come to pass. And when it does, you'll look back and realize the waiting season wasn't wasted. It was training you to trust deeper, to stand firmer, and to believe bigger. Waiting is not just about sitting still, it's about what you do in the meantime. Far too often, we confuse waiting with idleness, but true waiting is active. It's the preparation you put in before the opportunity comes knocking. Because when the moment arrives, it's too late to get ready. You've got to be ready. Preparation in the waiting season is proof that you actually believe the promise. If you know God is going to open the door, why would you stand by it empty-handed? Why would you meet opportunity unprepared? When a farmer plants seed in the ground, he doesn't stare at the dirt day after day wondering if something is happening. He gets his barns ready, sharpens his tools, and prepares for the harvest because he knows that what is beneath the soil will eventually come to the surface. That's how you have to treat your waiting season. If you believe your breakthrough is coming, then prepare for it. Get the skills you'll need. Time. Build the character you'll need. Strengthen the discipline you'll need. Because the blessing you're asking for comes with responsibility. And if you're not ready for the responsibility, you'll mishandle the blessing. Think about Noah. God told him to build an ark when there wasn't a drop of rain in the sky. People laughed, mocked, and ridiculed him, but Noah kept building. He didn't wait for the clouds to form before he prepared. He prepared because he had a word. And when the flood finally came, the same people who mocked him were now wishing they had prepared like him. Preparation distinguished Noah from everyone else. Preparation is what set him apart. The trap many fall into is wasting the waiting season. They complain, they procrastinate, they get bitter instead of better. But preparation redeems the waiting. It transforms the delay into development. Waiting doesn't feel so long when you're busy growing, building, learning, and positioning yourself for what's next. The truth is, sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened yet is because God is giving you time to prepare. If he opened it too soon, it would crush you instead of bless you. Look at David tending sheep before becoming king. That field was his training ground. It was there he learned how to use a sling. It was there he learned how to fight lions and bears. It was there he learned how to shepherd sheep before shepherding a nation. That season of obscurity was preparation for his season of visibility. Without the field, he wouldn't have been ready for the throne. That's why you can't despise small beginnings. Don't dismiss the little tasks, the hidden seasons, the quiet moments, because they are sharpening you for something greater. Preparation is not glamorous. It doesn't always get applause or recognition. But when the door swings open, preparation will speak louder than talent. Preparation will keep you standing when excitement fades. Preparation is why some people rise and fall while others rise and stay. Opportunity without preparation leads to disaster, but opportunity with preparation leads to destiny. So ask yourself, what can I be doing now to prepare for where I'm going? What books should I be reading? What habits should I be forming? What weaknesses should I be strengthening? What distractions should I be cutting off? Preparation is not about being perfect. It's about being positioned. Positioned for when the call comes, when the door opens, when the promise arrives. The waiting room is not wasted time. It's training time. And when the door finally opens, you won't be scrambling. You won't be caught off guard. You'll step into it fully prepared, fully ready, fully equipped. And in that moment, all the quiet preparation, all the unseen work, all the hidden discipline will make sense. Waiting isn't punishment. Waiting is practice. And preparation is what turns waiting into winning. When you finally step into the promise, it's easy to think the journey is over, that the battle has been won, and that all the pain of waiting is behind you. But the truth is, the promise is not the finish line. It's the starting point of a new level of responsibility. Winning is not just about arriving. It's about sustaining. It's one thing to reach the top of the mountain, but it's another to stay there without falling back down. And this is why God allows the wait, because the waiting doesn't just deliver you into promise. It develops the strength, the character, and the endurance to sustain the promise once it comes. So many people pray for promotion, but they don't pray for the discipline to maintain it. They ask for influence, but they don't ask for integrity to carry it. They want abundance, but they don't seek wisdom to steward it. That's why the wait is necessary. It refines you, it tests you, it exposes the areas that need to be matured before you step into the blessing. Without that refining, the very thing you prayed for could become the very thing that destroys you. Think about Israel entering the promised land. They didn't just walk in and instantly thrive. They had to fight battles, conquer enemies, and learn how to manage the land. The wilderness prepared them for war. The manna taught them dependency. The desert seasons shaped them to handle destiny. If they had gone straight from Egypt into the promise without preparation, the land would have swallowed them up. The same is true for us. Without the shaping of waiting, we won't have the capacity to handle the weight of winning. Joseph dreamed of greatness as a young man, but he didn't step into leadership overnight. He went through betrayal, slavery, prison, and false accusations. Every setback was really a classroom. Every delay was building resilience. By the time he stood before Pharaoh, Joseph wasn't just a dreamer, he was a man of wisdom, discipline, and character, equipped to manage a nation through famine. The weight prepared him to sustain the win. If he had bypassed the process, he would have lacked the maturity needed to rule. This is why you can't despise the process. The job you hate, the season you wish would hurry up and end, the battles you're fighting right now, they are teaching you something you're going to need later. Patience, humility, discernment, faith, persistence, these are the tools forged in waiting that will keep you standing when the spotlight shines. Because the higher you go, the stronger your foundation must be. The wait is God's way of deepening your roots so that the fruit can last. There are many who rise quickly, but they fall just as quickly because they didn't let the waiting season prepare them. They sprinted into the promise, but didn't have the stamina to stay. Don't be deceived by quick success. Longevity is built in the quiet grind, in the hidden faithfulness, in the years of unseen obedience. Waiting seasons are not about holding you back. They're about strengthening you for the weight of what's ahead. So when you finally step into that answered prayer, when the opportunity finally arrives, when the promise finally manifests, you won't just shout over the victory. You'll have the wisdom to manage it, the strength to sustain it, and the faith to multiply it. And you'll realize that every tear, every test, every lonely night was God's way of preparing you, not just to win, but to keep on winning. Because real victory is not a single moment. It's the ability to remain steadfast, fruitful, and faithful once you've arrived. The wait is not wasted, it's working for you. And when you cross over into the promise, you'll see that the wait was never about delay, it was about destiny.